The cafeteria buzzed with noise, laughter, and the clatter of trays. But in the corner sat Emily, quiet, reserved, and unnoticed by most. She wasn't invisible, though. To a group of bullies who thrived on making others miserable, she was an easy target. Emily kept her head down, her focus always on her food, or a book. That calmness to them seemed like weakness, and weakness in their eyes was an opportunity. That day, something inside Emily was about to change forever, as she sat at her usual corner table. The group of bullies swaggered toward her, their voices carried across the cafeteria, already laughing. Before they even reached her, one of them, Mark, the loudest and most arrogant of the bunch, sneered, "What's wrong, quiet girl? Too scared to talk?" Another girl, Sarah, rolled her eyes and tugged at Emily's backpack, dumping her books onto the floor. The cafeteria erupted in cruel chuckles, a sound echoing in Emily's ears. Emily bent down to pick up her things, her face burning red. She whispered to herself, "Stay calm. Don't give them what they want." But then Mark leaned over the table, grabbed her shirt, and ripped it down the seam with a smirk. The cafeteria went silent for a moment. Gasps, shocked faces, and then laughter followed. Emily's chest tightened. Tears stung her eyes, but before they could fall, something in her snapped. She remembered the hours she had spent quietly training in self-defense, classes her mom insisted on after Emily had been bullied years before. She had never once thought she'd need them until now. Mark reached out again, thinking he had humiliated her beyond repair, but this time Emily stood. Her hand shot up, blocking his arm with a sharp, practiced move. Gasps filled the cafeteria again as she turned, gripped his wrist, and with one swift motion, flipped him onto the floor. The sound of his body hitting the ground silenced the laughter instantly. For a moment, nobody moved. Groaned, clutching his side, completely stunned. Emily stood over him, trembling not from fear, but from adrenaline. She looked around, meeting the wide eyes of the other bullies. "Don't ever touch me again," she said, her voice clear and strong. Sarah tried to step forward, her fake confidence faltering. But when Emily shifted into her ready stance, Sarah backed away. The bullies muttered excuses and scattered, dragging Mark with them. The cafeteria, usually so loud, stayed quiet. Then slowly, applause broke out. One student stood, clapping, then another, until the entire cafeteria was cheering for Emily. But Emily didn't smile. She sat back down, fixed her torn shirt as best she could, and finished her lunch quietly. On the outside, she looked calm again. On the inside, her heart pounded with a storm of emotions, anger, relief, and something she hadn't felt in a long time: pride. Later that day, the principal called her in. Emily braced herself for trouble, but instead, he listened carefully to what had happened. Dozens of students had already come forward to back her up, telling him how the bullies had crossed a line. For the first time, Emily felt the weight of silence shifting, not just hers, but everyone else's who had always been too afraid to speak up. The bullies were suspended. Mark, humiliated in front of the entire school, avoided her eyes for the rest of the semester. And Emily. She wasn't suddenly the most popular girl, but people looked at her differently. They respected her. They nodded to her in the hallway. They sat with her at lunch. She realized she wasn't as alone as she thought. That night, Emily stood in front of the mirror, tracing the ripped seam of her shirt. What once would have been a reminder of humiliation now felt like proof of her strength. She whispered to her reflection, "Never again." The lesson wasn't about fighting back with fists. It was about standing up for herself for every quiet person who ever thought they had no power. Emily didn't just defend herself that day. She lit a spark, one that reminded everyone watching that even the quietest person has a voice. And sometimes, that voice roars the loudest when pushed to. By the end of the school year, whispers of her story still floated through the hallways. "That's Emily," they'd say. "Don't mess with her." But more importantly, others who had been bullied started finding their courage too. They realized strength doesn't always come from being the loudest in the room. It comes from standing tall when it matters most. And Emily. She didn't become someone else. She was still the quiet girl, still the one who read books in the corner. But now, everyone knew something they hadn't before. Quiet does not mean weak.